Welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and oh my gosh, you guys are in for a treat today. We literally have 6 people on this call today, and we're going to be talking to everyone about the Boston Marathon coming up, and then also the London Marathon coming up. 1 or 2 people are doing one or the other. So today we have Brent Woodall. Brent, how are you?
I'm doing good, Chris. Thanks for having me on again.
Hi, you're welcome. Thanks for coming back. Matt Barron. Matt, how are you?
Hey, Chris. Great to be on.
Good to have you. We have Aaron. What is your last name? Because you didn't put that in the thing.
Yes, mystery. Aaron Pearson, and way above average. Nice to be here.
All right, that's awesome. Eric Bretl. Eric, how are you?
Yep, you got it. Doing well.
All right. Jennifer Pope again. How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Great. Mimi Smith. Welcome back. How are you?
Hey.
All right. Here we are. Really what I wanted to do today was these local DFW runners are really fast, and they're going for some amazing times, at Boston Marathon and London Marathon. And so I wanted to talk to them about their journey on how they got to Boston, their goal times, their training, and all kinds of things. And so really what we'll do is we'll go around the room today and talk to each one of them. I say room, it's this virtual room. So let's start. Brent's actually first. Sorry, Matt, but he's who I see first, and that's who's going to go first. Let's start with introductions. Share your name, your goal in Boston or London if you're doing that, and which marathon performance qualified you for this race. Brent.
All right. So I qualified in Lincoln, Nebraska last year, almost a year ago in May. I ran 2:28. That was one of my better marathons. It was a really good training cycle. And I'm not going to be quite that fast in Boston this year, I don't think. But I'll be trying to run the 5K on Saturday and then the marathon on Monday. I'm hoping for a time around, I don't know, PR in the 5K is the goal. So like 15:20, give or take. And then turn around and run the marathon in 2:32 or 2:33 would be perfect for me.
That sounds awesome. And how many Bostons have you run before, Brent?
So I actually looked it up before this podcast. I've run it 5 times before, but I've never run it when I'm in peak condition. A lot of the times Boston is just a fun trip with friends and family. And so all 5 times I've run it have been between 2:39 and 2:40, which I'm happy with those times, but they're not peak performances for me.
At Boston, sometimes hard. I'll be running the 5K, not as fast as you, but I love the 5K. But there's 10,000 runners in it, and you have elite runners just in the 5K. It's pretty insane. Matt, let's go to you. Matt Barron.
Yeah, I'm running Boston for the second time. My first time running Boston, I qualified when it was a 3:05 time cutoff, and I ended up running at 2:48. So my back half was a 2 hour and 12 minutes. So hoping to go better this time around. I'm hoping to do a 2:40, sub 2:40, so in the 2:30s. And I qualified for Boston this time in the Houston Marathon last year with a 2:38 and change.
Houston's a lot of fun. My wife and I love that race. So and I'm sure most people here have done it, either half, full, or whatever. So thanks for that, Matt. Aaron Pearson. Now I can see your last name.
There we go. Yes, put it in this way. This will be my third Boston, and hopefully, better than the other 2. They've gotten progressively better, which is nice. But I didn't know how to run at 10 a.m., so that was it.
Yeah,
that was
that's rough.
A little bit of an issue there. And then I ran a Chicago in 2023 that qualified me. I think it was a 2:40 for that one.
And what's your goal for this one?
I would love to run 2:34:59.
Nice. I was going to call this the 2:35ers, but I hear some goals of 2:40, so we'll just keep it at close to that. It's fast as hell, so that's awesome. What else do you want to add, Aaron? Have you run the 5K there? And what was your best time at Boston?
Best time at Boston was 2:47.
Okay.
And no, not doing a 5K. I'm bringing the family. I lug them around everywhere, so I'll be busy probably that Saturday.
You don't sit there and rest or just...
That's advised. I would do that. I think that you should do that. I do not.
All right. Let's go to Eric Bretl. Eric, how are you?
Perfect. I'm doing well. So this will actually be my first Boston Marathon, so I'm excited for
Welcome.
that.
That's awesome.
Qualified at Cowtown last year was the qualifying race. I ran a 2:41:52, so for some of us, I'm a 2:41 guy. Some of us think I'm a 2:42 guy, depending on which way you're around. But that was the qualifying race. And then the goal at Boston will be around that 2:35 mark. I'm not going to go quite as bold as Aaron and say 2:34:59. I'd be pretty happy with. I've never broken 2:40 before. Anything under 2:40 will be good, but around 2:35 will be the aim.
Yeah, this is your first one, or
Yeah, so first Boston, and that's why I'm going to need to take some tips on people on how to wake up at 5 a.m. and get all your food in and get all your food back out before you start running at 10 a.m., just like Aaron said. So I've done a few 10 a.m. runs, but I'm not used to waking up at 5 before I do them, taking a bus and all that good stuff. So that's probably the part I'm most nervous about, to be honest, is that the morning of, but everyone deals with it. So
yeah. Have you been running marathons for a long time, or?
so probably I've been running since about COVID is when I started, I would say. I was a pretty big weightlifter, and then I moved here to Texas and had not run before. I guess this is getting into my whole backstory, but just a quick version is I ran the Dallas
We'll
Half
have you back
Marathon.
on too. But yeah, keep going.
Dallas Half Marathon in 2019 was my first race. I had the goal of sub 130, ran a 134, thought I trained super hard, thought I was never going to break 130, and then I found this group to chase, and just as long as you stick as long as you can on the long runs, you get trapped for your first couple years, and then all of a sudden you can keep up and you're going for 2:35 in the marathons.
That's great. You said you used to lift weights, so no wonder you had your shirt off. You just flowing off a little bit.
Yeah. It's also because I hold a lot more weight than a typical runner, so I
okay.
overheat more often. That's my excuse.
That's a good one. Javier always takes off his shirt. I don't know if you guys know him, and I'm always like, all right, dude, whatever. I think you should have your shirt off during the thing. But Jennifer Pope, how are you? You're running London this year.
Yes, I'm the imposter of the group today, not running Boston. I'll be doing London's, but it's somewhat similar. They still needed it to get into the championship entry. They still had to have a qualifying time. So I guess you could say I got that would have been at my last one would have been the trials, but the one I submitted was the 2:36 and change from Houston of 2 years ago now. So I used that to get into the championship entry there and going to make a vacation of it. So
that's great.
What time we were on, it was still up in the air if I was going to be running London, and I wasn't sure. That's right. I told you about it, but it was, hadn't heard back. So it's official. I'll be running London.
Congratulations. Do you have a goal time that you're trying to hit?
So it's interesting. The entire build, I feel like it's changed. Like January was a mess. I was like, wow, can I even hit 2:45 back in January? And each month has gotten a little bit better. And so now I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go for 2:40. But if the next month is the peak, we have 5 weeks of real intense training, and if that goes really well, maybe I can start bringing it down. Initially, my goal was 2:35, like 4 months ago when I started getting back into it again. So if I can get there, I can get there. It'll still be another few weeks before I feel like I'll really know. But as of today, I'd probably say it's like 2:38. You never know. I'm not giving up hope yet.
Well, Jennifer, what you've accomplished in just your short running career is pretty freaking amazing. And I just tell people that all the time. I think, this woman started when COVID. I know you're a soccer player, just doing a lot of stuff, but what you're accomplished and what you're doing is pretty amazing. So whatever you do in London is going to be great. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. And we'll talk about training in a minute. But let's go over to Mimi Smith. You're back on. So welcome back. Really appreciate you coming back.
Thank you. Yes, I guess if we're counting from me, this is going to be my second Boston. I did Boston in 2023. My qualifying race, I guess, was Chicago of 23. So I ran 2:34 there. That got me the qualifying time to be able to apply for Boston this past fall. And honestly, I want to break 2:35, but I have been approaching this marathon cycle a little bit less focused on a specific time I want to hit, because I feel like for me, in some of my marathons, I've been wanting to focus more on where do I start to basically lose my pace. I'm more hoping to just be a little bit more consistent, go out a little bit slower, and hold my sub 555s, around 550 pace for a little bit longer. Past mile 18, that would be a goal of mine. Whatever time that goes, I just want to race well. I'll be starting with the pro field with the women. I'm really hoping to hang on to a good group of gals and have them pull me along with them and vice versa. So we'll see how it goes.
Congratulations on getting in the pro field. That's pretty awesome. Last time we spoke, you weren't sure. So here you are, you're in, and I think you're going to do awesome. So why don't we keep with you, Mimi, and talk a little bit about your training kind of cycle, how that's been going, how you've been feeling, and anything different than usual. What's been going on there?
Yeah, so the big thing for me this cycle is I've increased my peak mileage up to 85. I want to say for Chicago, when I qualified for this race about a year ago, I want to say my peak was around 75. A couple marathon cycles in between, I got up to 80, but 85 is the peak highest that I've ever gotten. And that's what generally they recommend about every year if you're progressing and getting more into your training, going up 10 miles above your peak mileage up to a certain point. So that includes more doubles. And then I used to do a lot of swimming. I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to the cold now. Even though I'm from Chicago, I am completely Southern now. I don't like getting in the water a lot in the winter. So I've used that opportunity to focus more on strength. So I'm getting 2 pretty high quality strength sessions in a week as well that I'm sure some other people on this call can attest to. With a full-time work schedule on top of the mileage that we're doing, it's actually very challenging to add the little things. So those have been the 2 main components of this training cycle that have been more unique for me than other ones, along with just having a little bit more hills and trying to find hilly routes.
Interesting. Did you learn anything from Eric over there with the weight training, or?
I learned it from the 3 years I went to PT school. Cost a lot more than probably if I had a phone call to
Yeah, exactly.
Tell Eric.
She knows more than my YouTube PhD taught me. So
Yeah, my YouTube PhD. Speaking of Eric, how's your training cycle been going? I'm going to just bounce around.
yeah, training's been going pretty good. This past weekend, I actually just got sick. It seems like everyone's getting sick these days, but before that, it was going super good. I think my training approach this cycle was to just try and hang on to the people faster than me that have done things that I want to do and see how that goes. I view myself as like fast enough, quick enough to run the pace for 235, but I don't necessarily have the endurance. So I've been just trying to hit more miles like Mimi said, but then also just do long run workouts at about the pace, about faster the pace, and end with fast stuff, do longer long runs, longer easy runs. I haven't quite gotten to do any doubles, but I am still getting up in the 80s. So 80s doing singles is some longer single runs, which is, I think, helping me out too. And I'm definitely feeling stronger at the end of long runs because of it. Things are going well.
Pretty confident. You're feeling good going in. Good. That's good. Aaron, let's go to you. Cut him off guard.
There you go. I just need to unmute. Yeah, training is going. I was looking back, actually, ironically, probably like a week or so ago, just like where I was at with what I did in Chicago over the summer and like how many 20 milers I had ran. So I've added in a lot more strength than what I have previously. I used to do a lot of strength. And also, I probably have significantly, everybody on this call probably has 30% more mileage per week than I do on average, minimum. So I've started adding in at least more intensity through the longer workouts, some higher threshold, if you will. And then I will add more mileage just as a whole. I think my peak mileage for Chicago was like 70, and I never really did more than like 320 milers, and I'm past that already. It is significantly faster paces. I feel good about that. Similar to Mimi, I like her mindset kind of approach for that is just, how do I just continue to get better, but also how can I do it at a pace that feels good? I like to be able to finish races strong, and that tells me that I did a good job at peaking at the right time. So I feel like this is good. It's coming together at the right times. I feel strong with runs and just want to continue to put in the longer, tougher workouts. But it's been more confidence building. And then hopefully I can add in some mileage. These people keep making me. A lot of times they lie to me about the total distance we're going to do. So then I end up running more anyway, and then it like tops that what I was going to do for that week, but it's for my benefit.
Yeah, that's one way to see it. Are you doing strength training at all, or is there none of that?
Yeah, I'm doing strength about 3 times per week. I used to be, believe it or not, I'm more of a football guy, and then ironically, I'm not that tall, but basketball, and then track and running was like way down here. So because of football, I did used to lift a lot, but then just got out of that, and probably in the last 3 or 4 years. And I've gotten back into this. So I've been lifting about 3 times a week now.
That's pretty awesome. One key thing I've been hearing so far is the strength training piece. And I think that probably to run that fast and to maintain that consistently over the years, you're going to have to do a lot of that strength training. So love to hear it. Not surprised to hear it on this particular podcast because of who you guys are. Let's go to Brent, then Jenny, then Matt. So Brent, tell us a little bit about how yours is going.
Yeah, so I had a really strong fall in terms of mileage and lactate threshold workouts. I was up to 110 miles and getting in some really good long tempos and long runs. Coming into the winter and spring, I had more, I'll say, family obligations, which kind of interrupted training over Christmas. And then I came down with an illness in January that took me out for a few days. So my spring training cycle is more abbreviated than what I'd like. I had maybe 10 or 11 weeks to train for Boston, but Cowtown Marathon is part of that. And so running a marathon when you're not very fit also impedes your training for the next couple of weeks. So I feel like I'm just getting started now on like actual training for Boston. So I'm going to focus more on speed than I normally would. And I'll have less miles, like probably around 90 miles will be my peak, maybe 95. And lots of 5K pace, just because that's the type of pace work that I left out of my training in the fall. So I feel like it's where I have the most to gain right now. But just naturally how I run, I get in a lot of miles. So I'm not too worried about my endurance sticking around for the marathon. But we'll see. It'll be sketchy maybe in the last 6 miles, but we'll see if I can hold on.
I feel like you've run you ran Dallas full, you ran Houston full as well. No, you ran half for Dallas, right?
Yeah, I did the half in Dallas and then the full in Houston and the full at Cowtown.
Yeah. You're just killing it in the amount of miles or marathons anyways, fast marathons.
It was good through December. Cowtown was definitely a stretch. I could feel that my endurance it was pretty dramatically lower by that point, but it comes back. The big thing is just pacing. I won't have the endurance to go out at a hard pace and hold on to that for 2.5 hours. So I'll have to ramp up the effort throughout the race.
Yeah.
You're running a lot, so I'd love to hear how you've been training and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can echo both Mimi and Brent in that I am the mileage. I love mileage. I can do a lot of mileage. Back when I qualified, I think I peaked at 120. It's like mileage is king. It works.
Yeah.
It's easy. Like, I don't even necessarily care if I'm hitting a lot of paces during training, because just having that mileage, I felt I had the endurance to keep going. And so it did work. I also needed Mimi 2 years ago because I also broke, of course. That's what happens as your new runner. You want to push it. You're getting really fast really quickly. And I was doing so much running, and you love it when you're doing so well. But of course, I quickly ramped up. It was like 4 back-to-back marathon training cycles within the course of a couple of years. And it took its toll. And now it's trying to work my way back and get up there. But this will actually be one of the lowest marathon mileage-wise. And every single week, I'm trying to ask myself, okay, do I think I can go past this? Still have the tendonitis, and I just have to be cautious it doesn't get bad again. I do love that mileage, but I'll probably peak in the mid-90s, I would think.
Do you think you'll take some time off after London to continue to rest it, or are you just going to get back into it?
No, thankfully the summer is hot and it's a little bit more miserable. And so when I get back from London, I hope to get another PRP injection and then take a month or all summer off, take a good time off, and then just take the summer just easy running with friends, not worry about the workouts. But that's my goal right now. Is I really want to do well at London, but the London isn't as important to me as the next OTQ cycle. And so I'm hoping to be fully healthy, not mostly healthy when I get there, because I want to do really well during that cycle. And that's the most important. So I want to actually take the time off while I can over the summer, see when that cycle opens. It could be the end of this year, they say, but a lot of times it's like a 2-year span. So probably next January when they'd be opening that up.
It'll be here before you know it.
It will be, yeah. And I'll be like all summer, I want to run more. I want to run more. So I'll try my best to not run too as much, but at least keep it fun running all summer. Nothing too intense, a marathon build.
We'll stop inviting you.
You what?
We'll stop inviting you to runs.
Yeah.
You're no longer invited. I haven't been invited to any of these runs, by the way.
You start to have these friends, and they're all doing high mileage, and they're all running really fast. And again, to his point before, you start chasing them, and you improve. And we talked about that last time. You're like, wow, like you met these friends, and they just make you so much better. And so you keep following, and it's great. But you also got to know what your own limits are, too.
I was going to go to Matt. Is he still on, or?
Matt just said his computer just broke, so I think he's working on coming back. But something that I just noticed too, while Brent was talking early, is Brent is faster than most, if not all of us on this call, and he was talking about how he's going to do not so high a mileage, only 95, and all of us are talking about, oh, we're going to peak, and it's going to be 80, 85, 90 miles, and he's, yeah, I'm going to do low mileage, only 95 this time, so there's a difference for you in the caliber of runner that we're talking about too.
That sounds like you have something to learn from Brent, just because.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
as we work on,
maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Eventually, hopefully, that'll be the goal, but that'll be years.
Yeah, but not to the point where you break. You got to listen to that part too.
And I would also say for all the people who are probably going to be listening to this podcast, you've got a lot of people who are on here that do run a lot of high mileage. And to be honest, like to be able to run this type of mileage that professional runners and collegiate D1 athletes are running on top of full-time job is extremely challenging and not always realistic to your schedule. And I know for me personally, like I had said earlier, I'm a physical therapist and I'm on my feet doing pretty heavy lifting because I work in acute care all day long. So for me, running really high mileage might not be sustainable given the fact that I don't get to recover for 8 hours while I'm at work. Or there might be some people on here who, I don't have any children, but a lot of people on this phone call have children and they're not able to get their doubles in or do their strength stuff. A cautionary tale to it's not always, you can still run really fast and do your training, but everyone's kind of training is like a fingerprint. You got to just figure out what works best for you and your schedule. And just because you maybe might not be able to get the high mileage doesn't mean that you can't run fast or run a good marathon. Because I know some people who hardly get up, they might get up into the 60s. And I think when I first started doing marathon training, I was getting only up to the 60s and could still run really fast. There's loads of ways to do it. You just got to find what works best for you and what your body can handle given your lifestyle.
Yeah, and to Mimi's point, a lot of my miles come in doubles. And so it's been optimized over the year. I build my life schedule around running sometimes, but probably only 50 or 60 of my miles come in singles at this point in my training. And so I'm never too overly fatigued from one run.
Can you talk about doubles real quick? What do you mean? Just running twice a day or?
Yeah. So I work from home. Before I had kids, I could double and work in an office. But now with kids, I think you have to work from home to be able to double effectively. But I'll finish up my first run by, let's say, 7:30. And then I want to have a gap of at least 3 hours, probably 4, before my second run. But for me, the second run is always an easy run, usually on my treadmill, which is right there, and just 4 or 5 miles at a just very easy pace, just to loosen things up.
Yeah, maybe thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's important. I brought you guys on because you guys are doing elite athlete things. And you're right. Most of us, including myself, I'm not going to run even 60 miles a week. I don't run marathons anymore. I do a lot of halves and I'll do some 20-mile things like that. And then look, you don't want to hurt yourself. You want to be smart about your running and training. With that said, I'm just going to open it up now to as you think about fueling and just as you think about what you eat and things like that, and whoever wants to answer, how do you think about that before race day? And I'll point at you if you want, but Jennifer.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's often you have to practice it. We're doing a lot of long runs now where we're reaching 20, 22, 24 miles on some of our long runs. And so you got to start practicing what your stomach can handle. You got to start preparing to be drinking some water or something while you're running. This past Sunday, we did a long run, and for me, it had a good 10 miles at marathon pace, and I think I can fit 4 gels during that run, and that's even probably not enough. I probably want more on race day, but I was also thankfully able to stop at the car and stuff and kind of get some more water. But I think training, you got to know what your gut can handle because you don't want to, to throw up or have a GI emergency out there. And sometimes some gels don't settle. And I always think I want to know if I miss a water stop, is the gel just going to sit in my stomach and make me feel uncomfortable for that part of that run? And then something else I always think about when I'm running a marathon is unless you actually have bottles on the course, which most runners don't, is just never skip a water stop. If you can grab a cup, even if it's a quarter full and that's all you get out of it, take it. And then that way, if you drop a cup at the next one, no big deal. And you still continuing to get those fluids in. But that's what my thoughts are.
Anybody else want to pipe up?
I'll chime in right away because I remember the first marathon I ever ran, I ran with Jennifer for 21 of the miles until she dropped me and beat me by a couple minutes. But she had said to me, just don't skip a water stop. Whatever you don't skip a water stop.
Love that.
And my goal was 2:45 and I ran a 2:44 and I didn't skip a water stop. So to this day, I am not skipping a water stop because I don't know what will happen if I do.
Anybody curious? My wife calls it a sippy cup. I just carry a water bottle the whole time. I can run a 5K and I'm using a water bottle. I was like, I don't want to be thirsty. So
I do, Chris. I carry either a plastic bottle. I usually take like a kid sports bottle and just hold that because I realized that like fancier bottles are actually less lightweight and less easy to carry for a long race, and then you can just trash it and not feel bad for wasting $35 or $40 during the middle of a race.
It's a good point. And I want to come back to Matt since he's got back on. Tell us a little bit. What was the question? I forgot already because we passed it. about your training and things like that. Like, what'd you do before Boston, and how are you approaching the race?
Yeah, if the group didn't make the joke before, my computer is very like my training cycle and that it was a bit broken. So I had a really good build up before Houston in January and PR'd there, but then have been doing a lot of travel for work. And on one of those trips, I was just running around Jacksonville, which is a city I don't know very well, at 5 a.m. when we typically run, and tripped off the curb and sprained my during it. And so I only missed probably like a little less than a week, but it was just, hard to build back up, plus the other travel and work's just been busy. I've gone back up to 75 miles last week. I'll probably stay around here, 75 to 80. And then I do a little less strength than I wish I would. And so I do that once a week on Sundays, just given family and my job. But I've been doing a lot more hill work this cycle and prep for Boston. And so hopefully should be able to stay consistent over the next five or 6 weeks ahead. But I also think the way Mimi talked about training earlier is the healthiest way, which is like, I had a time goal in mind for Boston originally, which was closer to 2:35. But to be honest, I'm just going to do a prep race at the end of the month and just run whatever the race tells me I should run as my starting pace and see how it goes. And then this is one Boston. There's a million other marathons after this. And so I'll get that goal eventually, and it's more about falling in love with the process and the community that you do it with. And so I'm very happy with that.
And I love how you brought community in this, because it sounds like most of you run together at some point. And I think that's amazing. The community, I think, is a big part of the running kind of atmosphere. I'm a big community. I do that for a living, is building communities. And I just love, and one of my favorite is the running community. What you guys have built, the speed that you go at, but you've brought together a community that are doing similar things, right? Speeds and paces and all these things, and you're trying to hit goals. And I think that's what it's about, why you can. And hopefully you can do this for a long time. I know Brent one time told me, he goes, look, I'm 40 now. I got to try to win that Houston, 40 and above kind of thing. But I talked to the guy, his name's, the Masters. Cal Neff won that. I don't know if you know him at all, but I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, actually. But I was hoping you were going to win it, Brent.
Not this time around. I think I did 7th Masters at Houston.
There's a lot of fast people there at Houston. A lot of really good. It's a tough one for sure. So I'm going to throw this out. There's always this thing about Heartbreak Hill at Boston and things like that. Does that scare you guys, or is it like, no, that's not even the hardest part? What's the mentality going into not just Boston, but some parts of it like Heartbreak Hill? Is there any parts of it that bothers you guys, or is the hardest, or what is it? Anybody can chime.
I can tell you about my first experience. I had a friend who was telling me about the race. She is like ultra Boston fan, was telling me there's 4 hills, there's 4 hills, there's 4 hills. And in my mind, I kept thinking a hill is an up followed by a down. And so when I'm running up the hills, I'm thinking, okay, if I go up, I have to go down. So I get up the first one, which is like a up, and then a second, and then I go down. Okay, hill number 1. Then we go up the second, like a little, and then we go up again. I'm like, okay, I'm approaching hill number 2. And then I look up and I see you've reached the top of Heartbreak Hill. So I thought I was on my second out of 4, and I turned out to be my last. So I turned to someone next to me on the crowd. I go, is this Heartbreak Hill? And they go, what? And I go, is this the Heartbreak Hill? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And that guy probably thought I was cooked in the mind at that point, but they're not that bad.
Okay. All right.
It's funny Mimi says that, because I just remember everyone was, oh, it's so hilly, it's so hilly. And you have to prepare for that. You have to run hills. But I think I went too slow up Heartbreak Hill, because everyone was like, run it easy, don't over push on the hill. And looking back, I probably would have pushed a little bit more on that Heartbreak Hill, because it's still a hill. You have to respect it. But it wasn't nearly as bad as it was made out to be in my own head. And so I was like, oh, I made it to the top. We're good. Let's finish this.
I'm interested. I love that, Jennifer. And Eric's never done it. So what is it that you're just thinking about as you go into Boston? It's your first. You've heard a lot about it because all your friends have done it several times. Was there anything that, I don't know if it scares you, but is there anything that you're concerned about or thinking about?
I would say the more thing I'm more concerned about than Heartbreak is that it's downhill until then. So I don't want my quads to give out by that time. So I've heard from some people that's more of the concern, is that you don't want to go bang yourself too hard down those hills so that you can't go up. And I guess the thing in my mind, it's not a world record eligible course because it's net downhill. So I'm going to go fast. Maybe it's a bad mindset. Maybe it's a rookie mindset. But yeah, not too many concerns. And I think another thing that maybe we forget about, I think Mimi and Jennifer were both saying maybe it wasn't as bad as they thought. We run a lot more than the average runner. So we have the miles. Those runners are maybe there was nothing wrong with it, running 20, 30 miles a week. And then, yeah, a hill at mile 21 is going to be hard. But when you've done 3, 4, 5, 24-mile long runs with some pace work and we're hitting 80 miles a week, hopefully that prepares us more. And I think going back to my first marathon, I had the goal of 2:45 and everyone's, whoa, that's a really bold goal for a first marathon. But my first marathon was also 3 years after running with this group of people, going 60, 70 miles a week, hitting 22 miles for a long run. So if your first marathon, you've hit a 13-mile long run as your long run, that's great. But then obviously your expectations are a little bit tempered. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm not going to overthink it, but it is something in my mind for the downhill running at the beginning is to don't go too fast. Just because it's downhill, don't bank time is the one thing in my mind.
I think one thing Eric brought up at the beginning that people underrate too with Boston and New York is the same way, is they're really late start races. And especially when you're like a large male that needs a lot of nutrition to run any marathon, it makes a huge difference though, starting at 10 a.m. versus.
Are you talking about Aaron or Eric? Which large male?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
All
talking
of
about
us,
me.
but yeah, talking about Mimi. But no, it makes a huge difference because you essentially need you're missing lunch in there too. And we're used to running at 5 most days. So we just haven't gone through that long. And it's always hard to eat marathon morning. I actually think training for that and training to be able to get the right nutrition in your body is a big deal before the race, because if you start depleted, it's really hard to catch up throughout the race.
For reference for listeners out there, I say I'm heavier and Matt says that we're bigger runners. I'm about 185 pounds, which isn't overly heavy, but for someone running 240, 235, I think is on the heavier side of people running that pace. I'm still also toying with can my body store more glycogen so I don't need as many gels? Am I using more glycogen by carrying more weight so I need more gels? Which one? Do I just need the same amount of gels because of both? We're still toying with that as well.
I would say also too, all jokes aside, for hill running, and this is just how you need to approach hills on any race, whether it's like a 5K or a marathon, you maintain effort up hills, not pace. And that's, I think, something we've been talking about too as a group when we train, and we have sections where there is a hill that you want to look at the average mile for the pace, because if you do get a downhill, you will be going faster than your marathon pace. And when you go up it, you'll be going slower than your marathon pace. So don't look at a watch, see that you're running 20 seconds slower than your average pace and start sprinting. That's not how you run hills. Maintain your effort with it, whether that's your heart rate might go up a little bit. So just overall, like what you feel, and then get to the top and then be able to pick it up a little bit on the flatter downhill and you'll be fine. But yeah, definitely don't sprint up hills.
I think
I think one of the best tips for beginner marathoners, but also maybe more advanced marathoners, is if you can not look at your watch pace at all and just run it based on effort, or at least take splits like every 5K, give or take. These days, I try to do that just because I'm so eager that if I'm looking at my watch pace, I just know I'm going to go out faster than what I should. And I'm trying to convince myself, if I'm going to look at anything now, it's just heart rate, at least until the last 10K. Then I can let it go.
Love that. Aaron, any thoughts?
I think just an echo from what everybody else has said, which is that I think for me, learning this and also, like I said, just having I spent probably 10, 12 minutes in the bathroom in Boston in my first race because I did not know how to fuel correctly and had no clue what the heck to do and what to eat as well, so I think from that is like people say the luck is when preparation meets opportunity at that point. And so a lot of preparation, just echoing what everyone else has said, is the biggest key here. Getting in as many dress rehearsals, as many reps as possible so that when you show up, you just have the confidence. But I thought the hills were going to be crazy as well. But I think even my first Boston, I felt amazing other than just visiting and making sure that the people who put those porta potties out were used. I felt great throughout the race. So I really do think that preparation, that time beforehand, is really important. And that's what I'm going to be planning on doing just for long runs in general, or just fueling, is making sure that I narrowed that down. And then the one that's out of the scope, if you will, or out of our control, is just weather. I just hope we have great weather, because that's all of our training, all of our paces, all of our times have to adjust depending on the weather, where it's, the 2018 Boston where it's freezing cold, or the ones that are extremely hot. I'm just enjoying it. I think what Matt said earlier was actually great, which is just enjoying the process. I think at some point, I say this a lot because I have 2 kids now, but also just a team of people I work with a lot, which is that these are quote unquote the good old days. We just don't realize it. At some point, we're all not going to be able to be running together. So I'm just enjoying the early mornings, even if Jennifer gives us crap about doing it.
Sounds like it's early. And look, I think that's just the nature of
Tired.
building these relationships, right? Some of these relationships, you have more kids or something happens in life, you get married, or there's just lots of things that happen that you'll just remember and embrace these experiences that why you have them. Because I've been doing this for a long time and I thought this group I'm going to be with forever, but you're not. That's just the reality. Any cool story? Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing, just as we talk about prepping for Boston, I do think the important part about Boston is it is super downhill after Heartbreak, and that's where all the colleges are. And so the fans are amazing. So it is one in particular where it makes you can gain a lot of time on the last 6 miles. And so going out conservatively is definitely recommended. Not that's not recommended in every race, but it can make it, you can really carve out a lot of time on those last 6 miles.
That's a good point. Appreciate that. Any kind of like fun experience that you've had in Boston? Like you look back and you're like, oh my God, that was awesome. Or something cool that you saw or did or during the race was interesting. Anything like that? I know it's out of the blue question, so sorry about that. But I'm just thinking about that. So if not, I'll move on.
I wouldn't call this like a positive experience, but I think it was 2018 where we had the headwind. It was like a 20-mile-an-hour headwind and cold rain blowing into your face the entire time. So it wasn't a great race to run. No one was putting out a fast time. But I look back on that as one of my biggest running accomplishments, like just being able to get through it. I remember that marathon more than just about any of the others that I've run.
That's a tough one, man. When the wind is blowing like that on a marathon, it's going to be rough.
Yeah, my eyes actually hurt after the race. I ran it with a hat, but the rain is coming at you sideways, and so it was getting under the bill of the hat and into your eyes.
Is that the one Des Linden won?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's actually an interesting point, talking about bigger runners. The bigger runners all did really well in that race.
Yeah.
Des Linden is just slightly bigger than the other elites, and that really worked out well for her in that race.
Looks like that Japanese dude won.
Yeah, exactly. Yuki Kawauchi, is that right?
I forgot his name. But yeah, it's a good point. All the other super fast people just dropped out. They're like, I'm not dealing with this cold.
The people who were super skinny going into that race, most of them ended up in heating tents. It was just miserable. When you stopped running, your hands would be numb. You couldn't even take off your clothes.
And then
Anybody?
for me, Chris, I was there. An interesting story is I was there. I wasn't running it, but I was watching during 2013 during the Boston bombing. And so Boston means a lot to me. And that's why I always want to get into marathons and start running it. And so that gives a little fire to coming back and trying to get a good time on the course.
I used to work at this company, and one of my clients, we talked all the time, and he ran Boston Marathon that year. Oh, look who made it. That's pretty awesome. We have a special guest, and Stoddard joined us. So yeah, that was a special time. I remember my wife started running it the year after, and she's done it 12 times after that. But so definitely a crazy time then. So final question, and this is going to be for everybody. I'm going to have everybody answer this, is what's next after Boston and London? What's next for you as you think about it? We got that from Jennifer. We'll get that again in a minute. But so start thinking about that. I'm going to put Aaron on the spot this time first so that he doesn't have to say, yeah, what everybody else said.
Yeah. Right now, I am a much bigger, I would say, picture thinker for pretty much everywhere else in my life, which is why I like this group, is because I have to plan everything else. So I kind of default to what's going on there. So I don't have necessarily a race or a goal or anything in mind necessarily, just to continue to get stronger, to continue to get faster. But there isn't, I wouldn't say necessarily a race that is on the horizon, if you will. Just staying in shape, spending time with friends, and then just living up to the potential that I have. I think that's something that I wrestle with a lot, which is that if I ran more mileage, if I did these things, I think we put in our heads sometimes these words like should, and we put, I think, or label certain things to do certain things. But I do think that I have a certain level of talent that I'm probably not living up to. So I think that's just my continuation, like the continuation of reaching that potential, getting stronger, getting faster, and just enjoying it. I think so many people put so much pressure on themselves that they actually just burn out and then not end up enjoying it. So I want to continue to enjoy my running, get faster, spend time with friends, and document along the way. Got to get some more camera stuff out here. I don't know where my camera's at now, but I like to document. And I don't do it as much with running, but I'd like to do some more of that just to look back on, do some vlogging stuff. So I may incorporate that a lot more towards the summer stuff. But specific race, I don't know yet. Whatever these guys end up telling me I need to run.
I like that. We have to start pushing it out on Reels and YouTube Shorts and all of those things so that we can all enjoy it. Mimi.
Yeah, sorry. Have to head off in a bit. Thanks for letting me go. I guess after Boston, I'm going to try to use the summer and fall to maybe get a little bit more speed and train for some 5Ks, 10Ks, maybe a couple of faster halves. Jennifer talked about this earlier about how the OTQ cycle is supposed to start in January 2026. I waited really last minute last time to get OTQ, so my goal is to try to get it in Houston as soon as possible. So the next couple of years leading up, I can just do races I want. I would love to do New York City, just try to do some marathons in places and with family and friends and try to do some different things like that. But right now, Houston is going to be the next marathon after Boston. Just a shout out to all the people on this call. I definitely would not be able to have done any of the things I've done in the marathon without a group like this. To all the runners out there, even if it's just one other person you can tag team with to do your training, it takes you a lot farther than you can ever get by yourself. With that, I'm going to head on out, but thank you so much, Chris, for having us, and I probably will see you all tomorrow morning.
Yeah, my next marathon will be Dallas at the end of the year. After this one, I'll do some local races in between, just like 5K, 10Ks, beer miles. But I'll also echo what Aaron said, though. I think of life, there's 4 major pillars. There's your family, there's your fitness, there's your community, and then there's your personal goals. And I think finding the right balance between those is what you have to do. And so I think it's always good to, how hard marathon running is, to have some target race or some outcome you want to drive toward, but not being too rigid in terms of what that exactly looks like or what time you want to run that, and find the right balance across the different things you're prioritizing.
I like that. Jenny.
Yeah, after London, I want to, like I said, just take some time easy. I hope to take a good month not a full month, but just take a little bit of time off and then just do some 5Ks, 10Ks. Nothing I really care about too much as far as, I need to get a PR or anything. And especially in Texas summer, it's tough just to get through the summer, let alone try to get a bunch of PR. So I'm not going to put any of that on my shoulders, or just have some fun with friends. And then, of course, like I said before, that once that OTQ cycle opens, I don't know if I'll try to get in right in January. Mimi said first things it opens, but sometimes you might have a bad race, and so you don't want to wait till the end. So,
Sure.
That will be probably the next goal, the next big goal that I have, but I don't know exactly what race or the timing of that right now. So we'll see what happens.
Houston's always a good one if you can
It
make
is.
that one, just because it's fast and generally good weather.
Yeah, and that's where I got it before, and I've now run that one the full twice and the half once, and so that one's it's super convenient. I love it. Yeah, it's a great one to jump into.
Great, thank you. Brent, let's go to Brent next. I was looking at Eric and I said Brent.
Yeah, so at least through the rest of the spring and the summer, I'm going to try and take things casually. And now that I am in the Masters division, I want to race more frequently, but just not put 100% effort into any given race, because when your expectations get that high, it puts a lot of pressure on yourself. And if things go wrong, you get disappointed. I'm hoping this year to race throughout the year, stay in good shape, maybe not peak shape, but anywhere there's a race, I want to be there. So I have the Lincoln Marathon actually 2 weeks after Boston. So I should be able to maintain my marathon fitness for that extra 2 weeks. But then over the summer, it's just going to be group runs and then some speed work during the week and finding opportunities to race 5Ks. Ideally, I'd run a 5K on a track if I can find something like that. I've never done it before, but that will be probably the best 5K fitness that I'll have.
That'd be some good fast, dude. That'd be fun to watch you do that.
Yeah, we'll see. It would be great. I might have to get out of Texas to do it, which will be trouble with the family, but I'll fly.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what people said here going last.
There's no
but
echoes
just to
here.
kinda-
There's
yeah,
just
well,
it's your own personal thing.
Sing out the whole theme of community is Aaron ended his portion saying this, wherever everyone else tells me I have to run. That's what I do too, is just, where's the group going? What are we training for next? because a lot of the fun of this is training with each other. So
Yeah.
we pick a date that works for I think CIM is on at people's radar right now. It's not necessarily confirmed. It's so far away, but people are like, oh, would you train for that? I'd train for that. So I don't like to pick a marathon that I would have to train for alone. Granted, a lot of miles would be with friends either way, but doing the hard workouts with each other, getting in the grind zone with each other, just like keeping each other accountable is part of the fun of it and why I got in it. If I was training on my own, I'd maybe run 30 miles a week with a 10-mile long run, but my friends are going 24 miles. I'm going 24 miles too. So they just push you to be better. And part of another thing that we talked about is the OTQ for Jennifer and Mimi. Part of the fun is helping those girls get that OTQ mark. Granted, helping them, they're both faster than I am, so I'll help as much as I can.
They're helping you get faster.
Yeah, exactly. But being a 235 guy, it's really fast for a guy. It's definitely above average and closing in on elite level.
Sure.
But really, there's a 218 is the OTQ for men, and I have no aspirations of ever getting that. The next best thing is to help these girls that are living out this OTQ dream. That's super cool for them.
Yeah.
Something that we won't be able to do. We could do maybe if we put our mind to it, but not the amount of work that I'm willing to put in. But helping those girls do that is part of the fun of it too. It's a big community thing. Wherever everyone else is doing, I'll probably do that race too, and we'll train together and it'll be fun, and we can talk about it when we're 80 years old over coffee.
I love coffee. I always can't wait until my next coffee.
Let me just say something funny is for a long time, there are some people that didn't know Eric's name, and they just always knew that he ran with me. And so for a lot of these social runs, I had there were some people that would come up to me like, oh, where's your pacer? Where's your pacer at this run? And I was like, my pacer? And so for a while he became Pacer Eric. He would just pace the workouts, but he's very good at it.
Shirtless guy.
The shirtless pacer, yep.
I love that. Brent, who do you run with? These guys obviously run together. You live like in Allen or something.
So it's actually funny. I haven't been running with groups lately.
Okay.
The Sloths actually run about 2 miles from my house. Maybe even tomorrow. I'll have to send you guys a text about that. But timing wise and just the specific workouts haven't lined up lately. I do intend to go to more sloth runs coming up in the next few months. So we'll see. You guys will have to hold me to that.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to text him to get him out there. Anything that I missed that you guys are just, oh, you should have asked. I want to say more about it or whatever, about Boston or London or whatever. No, the quietness is always the tough part.
No, just thank you for investing to build the community even more. I think this is what the Sloths came out of an idea that Jennifer and some others had to lead the group. And I think it takes people investing in the community to continue to see it grow. And so really just appreciate you having us on and inviting us to talk about our experience.
Yeah, and I want to thank Jennifer she was like, hey, what we could do is we could basically have 4 or 5 of these guys talking and we could just have a roundtable. I was like, give me their names. I'll reach out to them. And so I was like, I bet hardly anybody makes it, but all of you made it. And I just got an email like probably right before we all got on. I didn't see it until late. Rena, I don't know. She couldn't get on for some reason. I was like, So I will get her on separately. And if I haven't spoken to you, we'll definitely do, if you want a one-on-one, to go deeper into your background and why you started running and things like that. And if you have been on, I'm open to having you on again if you want to be on again. So with that, I think we can close this out. So thank you everyone for coming to DFW Running Talk. Please rate and review us and please listen in, tell your friends and things like that. So thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.